Let me call this Zoom meeting to order. I'd like to thank everyone for participating and anyone else out there who may be listening to our Zoom meeting or viewing our Zoom meeting. Thank you for attending. I'm going to establish a quorum, which I can see all four board members are here. So that has been established. We'll go to Article 1 to consider the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes of, are we going to do all inclusive for a motion and a second, or do you want to do one motion, 1 second for each set?
Up to you.
Lori, I'm going
I
to give
have
you that
no
call.
problem with any of the minutes, so we could do it all at once. Depends on Lori and Doug.
I concur. I can go the same route.
Lori, you okay with that?
Yes.
I'll just name the dates of the meetings and then, okay, to consider the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes of March 12, 2020, March 17, 2020, April 6, 2020, April 20, 2020, April 22, 2020, May 4, 2020, and the Board of Selectmen Finance Committee meeting of March 9, 2020. Is there a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Dave, that was you?
Second.
Oh, that was
Okay.
Doug.
Seconded by Lori. Who was that, Doug? That you made the motion, Doug?
Yep.
Okay. All right, any more discussion on those minutes? Hearing none. Aye, in favor?
Aye.
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 Minutes have carried. Okay, the minutes have carried. All right, Article 2. To consider a legal opinion regarding public easements on the 11th Avenue parking lot Pocket Park. This is an article that was put on the agenda, basically with the establishment of a couple of things. Did we all, or is it just myself or someone else that received originally a letter from one of our citizens, Danny Daigle? Did we all receive originally that letter?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we all got them at the same time. Okay. And we did have correspondence back and forth with Mr. Gary Dufour asking questions. And so what I did is I contacted our attorney out of Redmond Winchell, Ed Bear, and I left our town manager out of this. I took ownership of this after talking to Doug, and I asked them to take a look at Mr. Daigle's letter and make any comments or a legal opinion as to what transpired and what was said through Mr. Daigle's letter, and to see if he had any concerns. Our attorney did. And we did get a response back. The letter I have is dated May 15th, 2020. I sent all of you a copy of the letter and some supporting documentation that I received from him. Board members, should I read the legal letter in its entirety?
I think if it's not too long, you should, because I don't remember
I sent
seeing
it out
any
Friday. Doug,
response.
did you get yours, Doug? I emailed everything out Friday. Lori, did you get yours?
Yes.
You did. Because I emailed everything at the same time. It's 2 pages.
Well, I mean, in the order of public interest, Don, I mean, it would be good at least to surmise, if not read, what the lawyer said.
Yeah, I can read this pretty well. I think it'll take me a few minutes, but if you bear with me, and for those of you out in the Zoom land, let me do this. It's addressed to me. On May 7th, you asked that I evaluate the concerns expressed by Daniel J. Daigle in an undated letter that you received on May 6th. Mr. Daigle's concerns arise from town activities on parcel of land located on 11th Avenue and Main Street, which to date have consisted of acquiring a parcel of land and raising the buildings, engineering and design work for a parking area with significant landscaping and drainage improvements, including regarding an installation of stormwater lines and manholes. A portion of these activities have taken place on property owned by Mr. Douglas Sear. Mr. Daigle is concerned that any expenditure of public funds from activities or improvements located on Mr. Sear's property violate the terms of bond financing for the town's downtown revitalization program. He seems to be saying that such activities would be lawful if easements were in place beforehand. Mr. Daigle has expressed concern that following the raising of the building on 11th Avenue, a retaining wall was built in essentially the same location as the raised building foundation. Because it is within 10 feet of an abutting property, and he contends that this activity was not properly permitted under the town zoning ordinance. In order to look into the concerns raised by Mr. Daigle, I have done the following, Mr. Attorney. He's spoken with me over the telephone. He spoke with Doug Sear over the telephone. He spoke with Keith Sear, Economic and Community Development Director and Director of Codes and Assessing, and reviewed the following documents provided by Mr. Sear. On April 27, 2020, an application for land use and the building permit. He reviewed land use and building permit number 6-20, dated April 27, 2020, authorizing the activities described therein, which are generally consistent with the activities described in this letter. C, a plan prepared by Woodard and Kern and utilized by Lark Studio, a landscape architectural firm. Said plan entitled 309 Main Street Parking Lot Plan, and D, a photo of the building located on 11th Avenue, which was raised in 2019. He emailed questions, that's number 4, he emailed questions to Town Manager Garrett Picard on May 6, 2020, to which he responded on the same day. Number 5, reviewed the Madawaska zoning ordinance, in particular its treatment of non-conforming structures. All of the documents noted in number 3 and 4 are attached to this letter to enhance your understanding of the facts. Based on his review, he found no mistakes. I find any mistakes in the timing of the execution of the Pocket Park project to have been de minimis. The work undertaken on private property was done so to minimize the adverse impact of surface water from the parking area being constructed and to improve the existing stormwater system serving the project area. There has not been, in my opinion, any unlawful expenditure of public funds. It is, however, the best practice to obtain permanent easements from Mr. Sear for a stormwater line and manhole that had been located on his property. And I am aware that Mr. Picard has contacted our office to prepare such documents a few weeks ago. The construction of the retaining wall in the same location as the former building foundation, which I understand is being done to prevent erosion or collapse of the adjacent property, would likely be found to be an activity for which the code enforcement officer could issue a permit pursuant to Section 2 of the town zoning ordinances, which addresses reconstruction of non-conforming structures. While it is for the board to determine, I do not find any basis for disciplinary action of any kind against Mr. Picard reasonable under these circumstances. And it's signed Edmund J. Bear, and this is the response I got. The supporting documentation, if you have it, includes the land use building permit. We've got the application and the permit application. We have a copy of a picture of the facility where the retaining wall area was located. And at this point in time, I'll open this up for any more discussion on the subject. Basically summarizing that it would have been, in a perfect world, a lot better for our town manager and whoever, or the engineers, to have acquired the permanent easements prior to construction. I think we all agree on that now, in retrospect. but there was no intent to do something behind the scenes. And the de minimis would not hold anything in a legal situation. So he doesn't see the need, and that's between us here at the board to make that decision if there's any disciplinary action that is required. So at this point, I'd like to ask, or if you have any questions or any thoughts you'd like to address on this letter to either in general or to our town manager, I think I'll open that up for now. So whoever, anyone?
Well, I'd like to say something. We know that the property is not very large, and we know that Mr. Sear owns the property on the corner. And I think in the the public would like to know, or people in town would like to know, if there is a formal agreement to be on Mr. Sear's property with this project, and if there's something in writing that says so.
There
I think
is,
that's
Dave.
the biggest concern.
There is, and it's called, I believe, a pre-construction easement. And it was signed by Mr. Sear and his wife, and also by Mr. Gogan and his wife. And that is in writing,
Okay.
allowing work to
And the
proceed.
pre-construction agreement is to have permission to go on their land to do this particular construction? Is that how that works?
That's what I understand. I'm going to ask our town manager the specifics, but I believe that that's what it is.
Well, before he answers that question, I suppose after construction is all done, that there would be something in there that says continuing use by the public of some kind.
Right now, the attorneys have that. They're working on that for a permanent easement to be put in
Okay.
place. And that should happen. I know it's been a few weeks that the attorney has had it. They're working on it. And as soon as we can get that and signed by the parties involved, that'll be part of our record moving forward. Yes.
And I think once that is done, I think the questions will be answered, and I think everything should be all right after that, Don.
Okay. Lori, anything to add to this conversation?
No, Dave pretty much asked what I would have asked. I am a little baffled, I guess. I don't understand this whole process apparently enough. I just want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in this situation again. Like, to be in the situation that we have people questioning, permits and easements, and that we have to send a letter to a lawyer to, kind of straighten this out. I just, it gets busy, and I get it, but I would hope that next time we have projects that we don't put ourselves in the situation again, that we can be, questioned. I guess things can, the timetable with our summer, you only have a certain amount of time to get certain things done. I just want us to be a little mindful going forward. And I take some responsibility too, because I didn't know the questions to ask. And so I just, drive by, I see things happening. Hey, it's all fine. I guess it's a learn as you go.
Yeah, and I did have that conversation with our town manager in regards to future projects that we need to dot our I's, cross our T's, but at the same time, put some of that onus on the engineering firm that we pay very good dollars for. They should be going out there and making sure they check their boxes and making sure that, whatever may be required as a project moves forward is done.
Right.
So Don, are you saying, Don, that that was one of the requirements of the engineer to do?
I'm not saying that because I don't know the conversations. Maybe Gary can shed some light on that conversation between the engineer and the town office. I don't know that, but generally speaking, they've done that before on other projects. Am I correct, Gary? The engineers have gone after easements and talked to people and
Yeah, with the projects, like the sewer project, for instance, where there's federal money involved and state money involved, they typically handle that, all those things for us. I think with these projects here, they were a little simpler and close, well, not really closer to home, if that's the right choice of words, but I think they were leaning on us to help facilitate getting those things in place. The construction easements that were signed with that Doug Sear signed gives the town permission to do work on their property. It's the same construction easement that we have for all of the properties that we're abutting with our pocket parks. So we have one with Doug, we have one with Frank, we have one with Mr. Gogan on the 11th Ave project, and over at the in front of Daigle Oil Company, we have one with Glenn Daigle, and we also have one with Ford Mono and Dubé. It's the same construction easement, just the tax map and the names are different, the signatures are different for each one. We got that language from the engineers, and we carried that out. Keith and I worked on that to get those in place. We brought the drafts to them. We included the maps, the construction maps, if you will, construction drawings, if you will, with the easement in draft form for each of the property owners, the abutting property owners to take a look at and chime in, and they've all signed off.
Okay. Doug? Anything to add?
Nope, I think I'm all set at this point.
Okay.
So
So-
can we get, Don, can we get an idea on how long the permanent easement will be finished and signed? Is that, do we need, somebody needs to be chasing that down and getting it done?
Okay, I did not speak to that directly with the attorney, but he did tell me that they were working on it, been working on it or asked to work on it roughly 3 weeks or so ago. They've had it maybe a little bit longer now since the letter was written up by them. But yeah, this is something that hopefully will come sooner than later. Do you have any indication, Gary, from your end of the town office that this is coming soon?
We have a couple of projects. We have a few projects in the hopper with the attorneys, and I spoke with them last week as to where we were at. And I think the goal for the easement would be to have a draft ready to go for Doug Sear and his wife to take a look at. If they were amenable to the terms, that we could have that for the board to take a look at our, hopefully, what is a regular board meeting next month. The permanent easement that's going to be granted by the Sears does not need board signatures. It's basically being conveyed from them to the town. So I don't know that there's a formal acceptance, if you will, by the board. I think there's going to be a back and forth on the language, but this actual signature making it happen is going to be from Doug to whomever. In this case, it would be the town of Madawaska.
Okay. I guess the point, is as we move forward, we need to ensure that, like I said earlier, that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And I think this was good to some respect that, this letter came from the concerned citizens. And I think we're going to move in a better direction in our future. And but there was nothing that we should say was a gross negligent, where ramifications of legal or whatever could occur. There's no ramification to the financing that we received from the Maine Municipal Bond Bank through the SRF program to do this project, this loan. Any more questions on this subject before we move on?
My only question is, until we have a permanent easement, should we put a delay on that, finishing that site?
I for one, I don't think, to me, that would be necessary. I'm only one board member.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Lori.
So okay, and I'm gonna use Doug as an example, just, I mean, not that he would ever do this, but I really need this explained to me at this point. What if you go ahead and write up an easement with them and Doug all of a sudden decides, oh, I want $50,000 to sign this, or I want this to sign that? Or what if Doug passes away and then his family says, no, we're not signing it? What kind of position does that put us in if we keep going with this without it? I don't know. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not trying to point fingers at anyone. I just truly don't understand, I guess.
And I can't answer that, Lori. I don't know either. You know, and I've been around a little bit. Gary, looking at you to see what we have in place now with the temporary easement.
Temporary
before
easement
we
allows
get
us
fully-
to finish all the work and the grading that would have to take place, regardless of the fact of whether or not there would be a common area use agreement for the part that people would, part of the parking lot that's on the Sears to drive through there. Okay, so the construction easement takes care of us for being there. It's always been the discussion when we first started this concept, that the engineers met with Doug Sear way before he became a selectman. Okay, last year, when they started on the concept work, and there was always an understanding that the Sears were amenable to a use agreement for that common area. And that common area use agreement, which would be perpetual, would basically guarantee the right for the townspeople to traverse over that part of the property that's defined, and that part of the property would be maintained by the town, paving of it, snow plowing of it, cleaning of it, whatnot. And so we've always moved forward with the understanding that that was going to be in place. It's not in place yet. It's being worked on. I don't have any reason to believe that that would not happen. Okay, so would it be great to have that in place right now? Absolutely. I'm 100% confident that we're going to get an easement in place that doesn't cost us $50,000.
Well, and it's just an example. I mean, like I said, I'm not questioning Doug's integrity at all. I'm just trying to understand what this process is, because, you know,
Well, it just took you, Gary, it just took you about 2 minutes to explain the agreement, and I can't see why the lawyer can't type it, or you can type it and have the parties sign off, and it'd be done. This is like a 1 hour project. It's not a 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8-week project to put something on paper.
I understand that, but I do know that the law offices have been on the limited hours under the COVID restrictions, and that's part of the reason why we don't have that in place right now.
Well,
But
Bob Bellflower is open. Bob Bellflower is open right now. You can walk right down there and have him put it together just like you are explained it. And you could be walking out with a piece of a legal document that the parties involved can look at, approve, sign, whatever needs to be done.
We will work on it to get something in place within the next 7-day period. If there's anything I can do to pull it that fast, then I will.
That sounds reasonable. 7 days. That sounds reasonable, as long as we got a time that we need to get this done. Yeah.
And I can get on with the attorney also and tell him this is, you know, this board is mandating that this gets done within 7 days and in our hands within 7 days.
That would be
Is that fair?
wonderful.
Okay. I've got my marching orders. Town manager does also, and we'll get this done.
Okay.
Are we done with Article 2?
I am.
Huh? What did you say, Dave?
I said I am. Yes.
Okay, good. I think, Laura, you're okay now to move forward?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Article 3 is to consider a period of public participation. Public participation call time between 5:45 and 5:50. we're beyond that right now, but via call in number 207-728-6351, or by written comment received by 3 p.m. Monday today, the 18th, sent to the town office by drop-off mail or email at gmpcard@Madawaska, Maine. At this point, before we go to the written, do we have any call-ins?
We did not have any call-ins.
No call-ins. Okay. We did receive some documents or papers about today. I think I got them. Public participation comments. We've got one from the Madawaska Historical Society regarding the funding request for the roof repair of the Albert House. And we also got another one received by Mr. Paul Lozier by phone regarding repaving of Main Street, the rescheduling of the 2020 Acadian Festival. Now, the Historical Society one on the roof, I think there's a few emails or letters, whatever you want to call them. I've got one dated December 30. I have another one dated March 10, and another one from Keith Sear, dated April 24th. I'm going to put this in the hands, if it's okay, Keith. Do you want to step up to the plate on these? And we know the situation. And Mrs. Gendreau came to a budget meeting a while back when we had budget meetings and made her plea for this. But now that we've been put on hold, we haven't been able to do any or take any action. The only other thing is that the roof is still in need of repair for them. They're afraid that they're going to lose a lot of stuff, artifacts or whatever they're called. And so, Keith, why don't we talk a little bit about what you are looking at?
I really don't know a whole lot other than I've been working diligently with Fran to try to get some grant monies for the Albert House.
Yeah.
We've applied for 2 grants thus far. We've been unsuccessful both times. And we continue to work. We're trying to get the property listed on the National Register of Historic Places, would open up additional grant opportunities in the future. But her big thing is she's in desperate need of some funding to get a roof on the house, because of all the artifacts in there.
Keith, has she or anyone been in touch with the Club Français here in town? They've got funding. They got monies that they may be able to help out with. I'm not saying they will, but that's another source. Has that source been looked at?
I'm not aware. I'm not sure. I can ask. I can certainly get on the horn with Mrs. Gendreau tomorrow and have that discussion.
Well, maybe, or if you don't mind, to see if we can help them out. It should come from her, but her contact would be Mr. Leo James Lavertu. He's the president of the Club Français.
Okay. Yep.
And they deal a lot with historical stuff and the French and stuff, and I think it's all related because all our people that originally settled here, de Français, all French. So maybe
yeah, there might be some there.
Might be an option.
Yep.
Okay. To kind of address it, it's a hard place to be for her, but it's also a hard place for us to be able to commit tax funds without voter approval. And that was why we go through the budget process, to be able to get to a consensus. Do we want to approve this or do we want to fund this? Whether the finance committee agrees and the board agrees, that's another story. But that process is on hold right now. And so I don't know what we can tell Mrs. Gendreau except more. I've talked to her personally. It's been a while now, but she did come in to see me. And, I said, we'll do what we can when we start up the process of budgeting and see. But I think there are other options out there that could be viable options. And I don't know if she's addressed them. So if you can make that contact, Keith, and ask her about the French, I don't know if they would. I don't know if their funds can be used for something like that. But I think it's worth a try.
Yeah, and I've been working with her. I'm going to continue to look for grant opportunities. It's just there's so many historic properties, and so they're very competitive grants when these things come around, and
Yeah.
it's been tough to get a hold of some funds.
Okay. Good, thank you.
I think another option, Don, that we forget sometimes is that there is a good group of volunteers in town that do a lot of volunteer work that could possibly get involved if they were approached or encouraged to maybe look into this, and that the cost would be very substantially lower if you had volunteers to help out.
Dave, do you think tomorrow, by chance, you could give Keith a call and tell him some of the names of those people that do that type of work?
Well, I haven't seen them in a long time, so I don't know if they're still alive.
But at least, give them a couple names and see if there's possibilities.
I think
Okay.
the other thing you need to be aware of is because they're looking to get this on the National Register of Historic Places, and to do that when you do work to a building, I think there are some bylaws there that you just can't have every guy with a hammer to go up on the roof and put in shingles. I think things have to be done a certain way in order to meet the criteria for that, because it is a historic property. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea. It's worth looking into. But I know it seems like she was looking towards professional help.
I'm pretty sure that the people that built that building were all people that showed up with a hammer.
Yeah, true.
There we go.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Can we address though, just, I know you're talking about the budget, and all that, there is in the letter, she's questioning whether they could have a UDAG loan. Can we just make sure we address that part of the letter? And then there was an additional letter, Dawn, that came in at the end of the day today that,
Oh, I didn't see that one.
yeah,
No.
for the same purpose.
I sent out an email saying, please include this in your packet, but I forgot to attach it to the email. So when Lori got on, she mentioned it, so I went to go check it out, and that was the case, that I did not attach that.
Okay. Lori, do you have a copy of that letter? Is that the one that you think speaks to you, Dags?
No.
Is that the one from Debbie you're talking about?
No, the one from Debbie, just like it encourages us to look at this again and reinforces the need for it to get done. But it was one of the 3 original letters that we got. I don't have them right in front of me, that just said, could you possibly talk about either a UDAG loan or, I just don't want that to pass by, that we haven't at least, discussed.
Okay.
Or addressed it. I don't, I know that it was UDAG money that built the gazebo in the first place and did a lot of that other stuff. I mean, I think how that, I don't know if there's money for that anymore, but no, I don't have the original in front of me. But anyway, she does request, and I think maybe it's Fran's letter, if we could discuss them possibly getting a UDAG loan, and so I don't know what that would look like, but like I said, I just want to make sure that we do address that. Should she come see Keith and talk about it? Or we,
Yeah, what I have in front of me is that letter that you're talking about is April 24th. Consider funding for the Madawaska Historical Society in its endeavor to save part of Madawaska. At the very least, is there a UDAG-like loan that could be worked out? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she's looking for something in the ballpark of $16,000.
I think they already had
I don't
8.
think it's, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, they have, I think they already had 8 committed to the project.
Yeah, 5 and 3, that would be 8, but the total project was 16. So they would be looking for, yeah. They would be
It's
looking
either
for
16 or 18, I forget now.
Well, the paper here on April 24th says the total
16.
cost is estimated 16,000.
16?
Yeah, that's what I'm reading,
Okay.
and I see it twice.
Well, that's correct, Don.
Okay,
You know, can I make a suggestion here?
yes, you can.
Before we make any decision on maybe using UDAG money, the UDAG business loan that we're doing at this moment, that we've committed up to what, $40,000, which is set to expire
End of June.
middle of next month, I think.
I think
End of
the end of June.
End
Middle
of
of
June,
June, which is the
middle
middle
to
of
the
next month.
End of
That
June.
af-
End of June.
End of June. Okay, so the end of June. You know, I'm thinking there's going to be money left in that account that's not going to get used, and maybe at that point we'd be in a better position to make a decision at that time for UDAG funds.
good point. Okay.
Can I interject here, Don?
You sure can, Doug.
I guess this would be addressed to Keith here. I mean, when it comes to economic and community development, do you have the history or the society in your scope at all? I mean, is there anything there that you are considering that could help the society, but also help our community at the same time? I mean, I think that this is a very viable avenue for this town. I mean, and it's important that we look carefully at where the society is and what we probably need to do to make sure that they're viable, because you can just hear by their letters, if you're reading it carefully, that they're very much in jeopardy. And so I guess my question to you, Keith, is do you have them on your scope at all here as we move forward?
Oh yeah, Fran, Jonathan and I have become good friends here through this process and applying for a couple grants for them. Like I said, that have been unsuccessful, but we're continuing to push. I also got her up to speed with the pocket parks that we're putting together and how we want to tie that into our revitalization plans and create programming activities. I think it would be a great avenue for the Historical Society. You know, they've been dormant for a little while, and since Fran has taken the helm, she's really starting to try to push it forward and try to grow exposure, membership, which are all great things. And you know, she's on my list of people to communicate when we start working on programming ideas, because that may be a good way to get them exposure into our community and out and about more often, and maybe help raise membership, which will also help the amount of money that they have available to them.
But you're really not targeting them yet as something that's viable for this community.
What do you mean by that?
Well, just that we should make sure that they are part of our future. And so in saying that, I mean, it now becomes part of the community development if we're going to keep them in our scope and have them be a big part of our future. And so I guess what I'm asking is, do you or does your department have any funds that we can help them with?
I mean, I'd have to look through my budget and see what's there. I mean, certainly if there's, I can look to see what's available. I don't have 16 grand for her. But I mean, I'm sure I could scrounge up a little bit. I think the major thing they're asking for here is they're looking for, they used to get an appropriation, and Gary, I don't remember exactly. I don't have that paperwork in front of me. You remember what year we stopped? The Historical Society had gotten a grant way back when, and we stopped appropriating funds to them as a town.
Yeah.
I think
And
1995, Keith, it says something like that.
there you go, 95. I was 8. So I was actually 12, sorry. But yeah, it's been a while, and I think that's their big push, is they're looking these upcoming cycles. They would like to receive some appropriation. Now, you're asking me personally, how do I feel about that? Yeah, I think they should. I think we should allocate some funds for them. I'm willing to give up.
Well,
I guess really what I'm getting at is, do we have them in our scope as part of our revitalization? I mean, are they going
Oh,
to
yeah.
be part of the picture?
Yeah, of
Well,
course. Like I said, I've been working with them on, since Fran has jumped on as president. I've been working closely with her. We've been in good communication about some of the programming things that we're going to have going, and increasing their exposure. Them, along with many other organizations that are in town. We're really trying to push activity down in the downtown, and the Historical Society would be a great organization to be a part of that.
now let's go back a couple of years or so, a few years, and we developed a grand plan for Madawaska. Was that, Gary, in there? Was there anything in there that about our history, about that the grand plan spoke to?
There's a lot of discussion that centers around our Arcadian heritage and preserving Arcadian heritage. It's all in there. I don't know I can't tell you the exact verbiage, but it is part of the grand plan to basically figure out ways to try to make sure that we don't forget our Arcadian culture. And so these are all things, and like Keith talked about, we are just in the beginnings of talking with the chamber and different organizations about programming activities, and our goal is to get everybody in town, all the different organizations, back together, working together, so that we all know we all exist, and where everybody's kind of like in silos right now, trying to survive. And I think there's ways that we can work as a community, municipality, the chamber, and our all the different organizations within the municipality to bring about some vibrancy to the downtown, but also bring some economy to the downtown, and also brings recognition to all of the different groups in our municipality, like the Club Français and the Historical Society. We totally plan on leveraging all of these organizations for the people that are there, and the energy that they can bring to the discussion. And that is our goal, and we're moving towards that. And it is definitely going to be, we're going to be involved in that as a municipality for sure.
Yeah, I think, Stand Français, like most of us are, and I believe that that's really important, that our history not be forgotten. And sometimes I'm a very visual person. When I want to know a little bit of my history, I can read a book, but I would like the opportunity also to visit. And I have visited those homes, those areas there. I've also been to Van Buren and others. But yeah, I think as a community, we should definitely want to support that moving forward as much as we can. And not just we want to support it, but I think we need to step to the plate and find a way to financially support them too. So that would be my plan moving forward. I don't know if I'll be on the board when we start or get close to finalizing a budget, but I think that would be a point that we should all keep in the back of our heads and try to see what we can do to help that out.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chessy?
Yes.
Since the Acadian Festival isn't happening this year, do we have some Acadian Festival funds for them?
I don't know if we have any monies in the coffers right now that have not been used. That would be up to you guys to take a look in to see what there is. Is there funds in there right now? I don't know.
There are, and I was going to ask the same thing, because the grand plan does talk about cultural tourism.
Okay.
So that was kind of a good point to make, and I don't know if it'd be legal to move something from one line item to another like that, but
I think that we would have to take a good look at the warrant article that authorized the funding of the Acadian Festival. I'm not sure if the language is vague enough or clear enough for us to shift monies from the Acadian Festival, even though that we're not funding it. We're not going to have one this year. It's possible that we could be just escrowing that money for next year's Acadian Festival as well. And so I'm not sure, without having the language in front of me, if I could with any certainty tell you that we can reallocate that money for a different purpose.
I would look into that possibility, but keep in mind also that we did make a statement that there's a possibility that we could do something maybe this fall if that opportunity would arise to do something. I don't know what that would look like, but let's not throw everything to one location. Let's find out what we have in there and what possibly we could do. Let's take a look at that. Okay.
Again, if I may say something here, because this is somewhat of an emergency, again, we should look at the end of next month to see if we can at least make them a bridge loan with the UDAG monies that's going to be left over from that program we put together, and then continue to look for some permanent funds to maybe pay back that UDAG loan. But the roof should be put on ASAP, as they have noted, because at this point, you're just, time is of the essence. Let's put it that way.
A good point, Dave. And I think we won't lose fact of what you said to take a look at that UDAG monies at that point. I think there's going to be a report from our town manager and our economic development director in regards to those loans where we are to date anyway. So we'll have some more discussion a little bit later.
So if
Okay,
it's a
the
matter
other
of
comment
waiting, if it's a matter of waiting a month and a half to get an answer, then so be it, you know?
Got it. Okay. We did have another comment from Paul. Paul just asked about the repaving of Main Street. That's something that Main Street is a DOT road that we don't know where that falls in their realm of activities and future projects. So, Paul, that would be my answer to your question. And the rescheduling of the 2020 Acadian Festival, Paul, I believe we talked about moving that, probably not going to happen like it's been happening, but maybe in 2021. There were no other comments at this point. So we'll move on to Article 4. To consider other business and adjustments to the agenda. I don't know if we have any other business or need for any adjustments. Am I correct?
I do not have any, Don.
Okay. Article 5 is to consider the treasurer's warrants. It's a little bit difficult to get into the town office, but if you're able to knock or a call in advance, I've been in, I think it was last week, and I signed a bunch of warrants, reviewed them, signed a bunch of them, but I'm not sure at this point that, are we ready to make a motion in a second to accept them?
I have slacked off and have not gone in a while. Last time I went, Gary had a box full, but
Yeah.
you know, I haven't been in.
Okay, so Gary, maybe in your 2 seconds that you have to breathe sometimes at the town office, if you could see where we are with signatures, or all board members at this point, you know, we should make an effort to go in and review them and sign off on them, so that way at least the copies that are there are signed. And once there's enough signed copies, maybe at that point we can, hopefully in June, we can start meeting in real time with open to the public type thing with spacing and requirements that are going to be in June, but that'll be another topic of discussion that later on. But
I will need.
I don't see that.
Go ahead.
I was wondering how we're going to consider the treasurer's warrants if not everyone has seen them yet.
Yeah. I will need board signatures for some various documents and some abatements that we're going to be considering. And I have a need for your signatures on other documents as well. So my goal was to be chasing you guys down tomorrow if you can't, however, to obtain those signatures. But we do have some stuff that needs to be signed soon.
Okay. All right.
I will be in tomorrow, Don. I've got to go downtown. I'll be there tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Doug. And I'll try to make an effort to get there tomorrow to see if what still might be there and if there are any documents to sign. Okay, let's move on to Article 6. Consider an agreement for combining tax lots for lots 32S and 32R on tax map 11. Can you, Gary, lead us through this one?
So we received this agreement for combining lots for those two lots. Bob Belfleur is the one who's prepared this for us. And it basically just combines the lots on the tax map, if you will. Doesn't combine them in a deed, it just combines them on the tax map, if you will. And so the board would, they're basically asking for the board to approve this.
This is a two-pager where it's got the, you can read it whereas where the 32S and the lot 32R. Have you all had a chance to read it?
Yep, I have.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Moved by Lori. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by David. Any more discussion? I would just add that it's probably something we're going to have to go in and sign off to, one of these that you want to have signed, right?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Took care of Article 6. Article 7, consider a town of Madawaska arbitrage and use of proceeds policy, a post-issuance compliance policy related to bonds issued by the town of Madawaska.
So this,
Gary, you'll have to walk us through this one.
if I may, this is something that the attorneys didn't send us when we did our resolution for our rural development for the bond. And they sent it over to me. And it's basically post-issuance of bond and compliance policy that says, if you have a bond, like the sewer bond that we have, that the use of those proceeds are as follows. We've had discussions about this before. The attorneys have sent this over to me about a week or so ago for the board to sign. And it's basically a policy that says that all property that was financed through a bond shall be maintained accordingly during the life of the bond. In this case, it's the sewer department. It's for the bond is 25 years, I believe. So.
Okay, it's a 3-pager. Have you had a chance to review it?
Somewhat.
Do you need more time to look at it, to understand it? Questions to ask?
I'm all set.
I am too. I've read it through it twice, and I've seen some of this through my work anyway. So I know that these documents are those type of things that arbitrage, the banks and whatever, they need to have these lending organizations. So is there a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Thank you, Lori. Motion by Lori. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Doug. Any more discussion on this?
So this, Don, is basically to protect themselves, the bond issuance, that this property that they've made a loan against will be kept during the life of the bond.
Correct.
Yeah, and it follows the law in regards to it on how there's documentation, there's all types of things that have to go into this through the life of that 25-year bond. Record keeping, the administration part and everything. We're just adopting this as a document that the town of Madawaska as a policy will follow and on this particular
So this form must be the same every time that we are looking for a bond.
I would
I
say,
think it'd be roughly the same thing.
yeah, I would
Yeah.
say yes. I think in this case with rural development, it was a little more, they wanted a little bit more than, we already have an arbitrage agreement, if you will, that was signed when we did the RD loan at one of our last meetings. This is more of a policy that we can put in our policy book, which is guidance for the board and the treasurer, whoever the treasurer is in the life of the bond, to make sure that the post issuance will be there's going to be compliance post issuance, meaning, you know, the property that was financed by that project has to be used for that intended purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Dave, are you all set? Okay, I am too. Article 8, to consider the 2020 main revenue services ratio declaration and reimbursement application. We have that here. It's got a couple pages, I believe, that goes with this.
So every year, Maine Revenue Services does a sales study of in every municipality to see what the transfers are, what the properties are selling for, and with that, they come in with what they call a ratio that the town can certify their property at. And what this affects mostly is the certified ratio. They give us a range to pick from. In this case, based on our sales ratio, our sales study, the range is from 95 and 117%. Last year, we were at 120% based on the sales ratio. And what that does, the certified ratio does two things. Primarily, it helps to set the homestead exemption. And what it does is, for instance, last year, our homestead exemption in Maine, as adopted by the legislature, was worth $20,000. $20,000 of value, if you have a homestead application on file with the town, is taken off your property. You're not taxed for that, and the town is partially reimbursed by the state of Maine. The homestead exemption is affected by the certified ratio. So when you're at 100%, let's say for instance, and the state's homestead exemption as adopted by the legislature is last year was $20,000, then the homestead exemption will be $20,000. If your certified ratio is less than 100%, the amount of the homestead exemption will be reduced. In this case, if we went to 95%, our homestead exemption would only be 95% of what the legislature adopted at. This year, or I should say last year, but starting April 1 this year, the homestead exemption as adopted by the state legislature went up to $25,000. And so what that means is that if you were to take the higher range for certified ratio, that would increase the state's $25,000 homestead exemption to $29,250 if we went in at 117%. That gives people a bigger homestead exemption. The other thing that it does is it helps to determine what our Betty reimbursement is. And our Betty is the Business Equipment Tax Exemption Program, where qualifying businesses or businesses with qualifying equipment put in place or put in service after 2008, I believe, can be exempt from taxation by the town. The town, as long as they submit a Betty application by April 1 of each year, and it is certified by the assessor. And what that does, again, just like the homestead exemption, the amount of property that we have in Betty is affected by the certified ratio. So the larger the certified ratio we certify, the bigger reimbursement we get from the state of Maine on Betty. And the reimbursements, of course, just like homestead exemption in Betty, we use those. Those come in the form of payments throughout the fiscal year, and we use those to reduce what we need to collect for property taxes. So it is advantageous for the town, and we've always done so to select the highest certified ratio that we can get, so we can give people a bigger homestead exemption and get a bigger Betty reimbursement from the state of Maine. Keep in mind that Madawaska has a lot of equipment in the Betty program with Twin Rivers paper, equipment that they don't have to pay property tax on. So reducing the factor or the certified ratio has a pretty significant impact on how much money we get reimbursed by the state of Maine Revenue Services. So in the past, last year, we certified at 120 is the highest of the range that we could get for certified ratio. That would be my recommendation.
Gary, it says here on option number 2 that we should be choosing between 95% and 117%.
Yes,
Am I reading this right?
yes,
So the maximum we could use is 117%.
correct.
That's correct.
I did run the math for you guys. So, and for everybody who's listening here today, if I could find my paper, what that means for homestead exemption. For instance, last year, our homestead exemption by the state of Maine was $20,000. It was increased by our certified ratio by $4,000, being at 120%. And that gave a reimbursement, or excuse me, that resulted in a $556.80 decrease in somebody's tax bill for the homestead. That was the benefit there. This year, if this board were to certify at 117%, and again, mentioning that the legislature brought the homestead exemption up to $25,000 this year, that would mean that the homestead exemption amount for assessed value would be $29,250. At last year's mill rate, that would equal to about $678.60 of property tax relief, which would be $121.80 more than last year.
Is that the certified ratio? Is that the only thing that it affects, or is that? I mean, why wouldn't somebody choose 117? There's got to be is there a downside to this? Is what I'm trying to ask.
I mean, it affects what happens is with personal property. It affects what's basically on the books for personal property, the value. So we have to certify it for all of the personal property that we have across the board, be it in Betty or not. Okay.
So this pertains mostly to personal property. Does not pertain to
no
the other side of it, which is fixed real estate.
It does.
But in this particular case, the residential property.
It doesn't bring up residential assessed values.
No.
Because what happens, Dave, it's the residential assessed values and the trends in the market, okay, that are what gives us this range. It's basically saying, based on the property transactions that we studied, Maine Revenue Services in your municipality, this is where we are right now. We're actually, properties are selling for more, okay, than what we have on our books, okay? So that doesn't in turn affect what we have on our tax cards for real estate. It only affects the personal property.
So answer me this here. Last year says it was 120% max, and now this year it's 117. So what made it drop to 117? Are the properties selling for more money now, and that's why it dropped to 117?
I'm not sure, Dave. I mean, there's a complex analysis that they do with this, with Maine Revenue Services. I don't see that. They do a sales study, and when they do a sales study, what they try to do is get a representative grab sample of what are typical transactions for property that sells in a municipality. They throw out all the anomalies, such as property that was conveyed from one family member to another, or property that, you know, was worth 10,000 that would have sold for 150,000. It's just not typical. Or conversely, property that was worth 250,000 that would have only sold for 10. They discount all the anomalies. They take a representative sample and they do their thing and they come out, and that's what they call the sales study. Simply said.
Can I ask Gary?
Sure.
So what is, getting back to what Dave was questioning, what is the downside to this ratio? What is where's the 95? Who would work with a 95% ratio as opposed to a 117? Why that difference in amount? What benefit or loss do we face here with these ratios?
So the downside to choosing it at the lowest ratio in the range that they give us has the effect of driving up the mill rate. Okay, because we're going to get less Betty reimbursement from the state of Maine. Okay, so it will have a negative, or it will have an effect, which is to increase the mill rate. I can't tell you by how much. We're not, we've got to go through our budget, and you have to put all the data into the MVR. But the downside, I guess, would be that people don't get the bigger homestead exemption, and we get less Betty reimbursement.
So basically, so that everybody understands, what you're really doing is you're devaluating property.
No.
Is that right? I mean, how do we get to 95?
It's not that you're devaluating property. It would on the personal property side, yes. You would be certifying that equipment at a lesser value than at 100%. So it basically, what it's doing is it's looking at the real estate trends and giving us a figure that we can carry over onto the personal property side, if you will. Because we have to basically, everything has to be taxed uniformly. So as far as I haven't seen, when I was in the other in Senegat, we always went for the higher ratio, if you will, but it was always less than 100% of what the state's was. So that ended up resulting in a homestead exemption. I believe when I was there was 16,000 instead of 20. So it had the opposite effect of it wasn't as good for the homestead exemption, and it wasn't as good for the Betty reimbursement.
Because it was below 100%.
Correct.
Yeah.
So your recommendation is that we go with the 117, and last year we did the 120.
Yes.
Okay.
And this has to be sent back to them by June
1.
June 1.
I make a motion that we accept the 117 and move forward.
Okay, I'll second that.
Motion by Dave, seconded by Doug. Any more questions or comments? Who's going to sign off on this?
It only asks for one board member's signature. So by your authorization to set this, there's only signatures for a couple of assessors here. So by your authorization, I would say probably the chair and the vice chair can come in and sign.
Would that be part of the motion, Dave and Doug? Motion in the second that the chair and the vice chair sign off on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Article 9. To consider sewer abatement requests for accounts 5,680, 60,665, 72,860, and 72,492. Are we going to take them one at a time, Gary?
Yes. So
Let's start with 50680.
So 50680, you can see the summary here was that overcharge due to water being turned off in October. All previous sewer bills were paid up to date. So we look at the history going backwards to basically go forward. Our office was informed of this change, that they were going to basically be on a maintenance fee moving forward, and that's what this abatement is asking for. This first one here.
Is there a motion to accept this abatement request?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Okay, Lori made that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, David. Any more questions on account 50680? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Account number 60665.
So this account here, the person is requesting an abatement due on inability to pay or due to hard times. I don't know that we can do an abatement. It's not like a property tax or a poverty abatement. This is a sewer. I would be less inclined to approve this abatement request here.
You're not inclined to approve it, or you're inclined to approve it?
I'd be less inclined to approve based on hardship. I don't know that it's not something that we typically see, an abatement request on the sewer side or for a sewer account based on the ability to pay. There are definitely more provisions on the on a real estate for poverty abatement than there is on this side.
So you're not recommending that this one be approved? Am I,
I would
is
have,
that sum it up correctly? What, Lori?
I have a hard time with this one simply for the fact that, I mean, there's no documentation. We're not going to start getting into people's financials. The way this is presented, you could have 1,000 people come and say, hey, I can't afford my sewer bill. I wanted an abatement. There's no proof of anything here. I'm not saying anyone is making up that, they're going for disability, but there's just nothing here that says, give us any facts to go on to say, yes, I really think this person is suffering and can't pay it. I don't know who this is. I mean, someone could be making $300,000 a year and give us this information here, and I wouldn't know, So I have a little hard time with this one.
I don't,
Okay,
I don't
anyone
know
else
how
have
we,
any comments?
I don't know how we can approve this, Don. I mean, it doesn't, I just don't see how we can approve this.
Okay, well, to take action, we still need an action to be taken, which would mean a motion and a second to not approve it.
I'll make the motion that we do not approve this request.
Moved by Doug. Is there a second to this?
I'll second.
Lori? Dave, you all set?
I'm all set.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, sewer abatement request, account number 72860.
Okay, so you all know that most of our sewer billings is based on flat fee plus consumption. And so there are times when there are issues with, and we get our consumption data from the water district. So every billing cycle, we get a spreadsheet from the water district. It tells us the units that were used in each account, and we dump that data into our sewer billing. And so this request here basically explains that there was a water leak confirmed by the water district on March 10, 2020, and it was reported to this office here. They're asking for an abatement. I would have no issue. I would have no issue with this one right here.
I make a motion that we rebate $287.50.
Moved by David for 287.50. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Lori. Any more discussion? Before we vote, because I know and I'm affected, not affected, but the information is coming from me, I'm going to abstain from a vote on this. So, but the rest of you, if you're in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
you're all set?
Aye,
Okay.
yep.
And the record will show I abstain because I just don't know okay. Next one is 72492.
This one as well, request came in for an abatement, and a letter was to go along with it to explain the situation. Another one where there was a leak. In this case, the leak was a leaky toilet. And so they are asking for an abatement to this one as well.
You know, I don't know. I mean, you know, we all face these issues. I don't know what to say with this. I mean, I would not approve it.
Anyone else?
Well,
I think it's important to
does-
mention, just to provide a little bit of context to this one here, the last abatement that we just approved, the leak was actually underneath
The trail.
underneath the structure. It wasn't leaking into the sewer system. It was leaking on the ground. So it wasn't anything that, water that needed to be treated or had to go through our system at the sewer department. Right, Don?
yeah, that's a good point.
That's correct. So Doug, are you making that into a form of a motion that this is not allowed, not approved?
If you're ready for that motion, that I'm then so moved.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Seconded by Lori. And again, our town manager did speak to the fact that the water that was leaking through a toilet that went into the sewer system. It was not on the outside or lost in the ground or.
Just to Dawn, and you're probably aware of this, just in the past 10 years, anybody that had a leaky toilet ended up having to pay his water bill and ended up having to pay the sewer bill. That was the end of that. So this is nothing new that we're saying here tonight.
No, we're not inventing the wheel on this one. Any more discussion on that one? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. We're gonna move on to Article 10. Consider a property tax abatements for accounts 872 and 370, 2252, 2288, and 2145. We do have documentation on all of these. Let's start with accounts 872 and 370. Gary, can you start that process for us?
That'll be Keith, our assessor.
Okay, yeah, sorry, Keith, go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, so the owner of account 872 purchased the adjacent lot, which was account 370. They had a conversation last year with the previous assessor that if they were to purchase, what the taxes would be if the properties were combined. And there was a combining those two properties would have resulted in a $22,600 decrease in value. The only thing is that the purchase occurred, it only occurred after April 1st of 2019. It occurred in July. So the owner of these properties is looking for an abatement for that amount. But my recommendation would be that they'd have to be left separate since it was purchased after the April 1, 2019 deadline.
But moving forward,
They will be combined, and yes,
be a
correct.
decrease in the property value on that particular lot.
Right, yes.
Okay,
It's also in order to apply for an abatement, you have to do so within 180 or 85 days of the tax commitment. And so depending on when this one was received.
No, it was received. It was received in time, Gary. There was just a sort of a lag time here with everything that's been going on. We haven't been able to get them on. Yeah.
All right.
So that my recommendation would be, just because of that, based on the nature that April 1 is the cutoff and then the purchase was made after that date. My recommendation would be to deny that abatement request.
I make a motion that we accept Keith's recommendation.
motion by Dave to approve the assessor's recommendations. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Doug. Any more discussion on A? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. Account 2252, Keith.
Yep. So this one was was actually asked by the property owner to go reassess their property, their home. The property had been assessed with a pool, which the pool had been removed for over 10 years, based on the homeowner's information. It was also assessed as a 2-car garage home where it was clearly a 1-car garage, and it's not like it was a 2-car garage that was torn apart. It was built as a 1-car garage. So because of these things, when I did the math, it would the difference in the assessment would be $1,600 worth of value, which is $37.12 based on the current tax rate. So the property owner filed an abatement for that amount, and my recommendation would be to abate that amount, since all the changes had been anything that was going on with this property happened a while back.
I make a motion that we accept Keith's recommendation.
Second.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second? Lori? Yes? Any discussion? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye. Account 2288.
Yep. So this one as well. I was asked to go visit the property. The property owner had a conversation with me. They last year did a little bit of work to the exterior of their home. They put some roofing, a new deck. They changed some windows as well. They weren't necessarily advised. The taxes sort of skyrocketed from 2018 to 2019. So because of that, I was asked to go in and just take a look. When I compared, before I even did the analysis of the new construction, which all occurred on the outside of the building, in comparing that property to similar properties in that same neighborhood, it was overassessed compared to similar type properties built in the same time frame. So in looking at it, I reduced the grade on the building to match similar properties in the neighborhood. Which, when you did all the math, it resulted in a $4,400 reduction. And then that new number, when I compared it again to 3 or 4 similar properties in the same neighborhood, they matched up evenly at that point. So I felt comfortable with that number, and the property owner asked for an abatement of that amount, the $4,400, which would be a decrease of $102.08. Again, based on my visiting the home and speaking with the property owner, my recommendation would be to approve that abatement.
I have one question, Keith.
Yes, sir.
The increase of $15,600, was that the cost of putting on a new roof and windows, and I think there's decking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the, okay, roofing, decks, and windows?
Right. Yeah.
Was
And
that
again,
the cost of materials and labor, or was that, do you know what that is?
well, what it was is the valuation for 2019 came in $15,600 over the year before. So it was the assessed value went up 15,000 over the year before based on some of those. I don't know if it was the exact cost. I was not the assessor at that time when that
Okay.
was done.
Okay.
The homeowner was, the property owner was a little baffled when they received their bill. They obviously knew their taxes would go up a little bit, but it was sort of a major jump compared to the work that was done.
I just want to make a point that when a house is 20 years old and it needs a new roof, and you put a new roof on it, it doesn't necessarily increase the value of the house, because
correct.
you never decrease the value down to zero with the old roof. So it
Right.
should remain equal.
Yeah.
And
Now
these are discussions that we've had in the past, and that was the only little thing that I wanted to put across.
Yep.
But at the same time, I think your reasoning is on point, and I make a motion that we accept your recommendation.
Moved by David to accept the recommendation to approve the abatement for account 2288. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Lori. All in favor? Signify aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And 2145, account number 2145.
Yeah, this one's really easy. This was the property owner on this. When the original deed on the sale was done, the property owner's name was incorrect on the deed. So this property owner went through the motion legally of getting the right paperwork to match his actual name. When that transfer came through, again, this happened before I was the assessor, but because it was a different name, they assumed that it was a new sale, and his homestead was taken out at that time. So because the owner, and I had all the legal paperwork matching it, that it was just a name change. So he filed an abatement saying that he should have received his homestead, which I agree with, and he should have maintained that homestead exemption. So that that would reduce the total valuation by $24,000, which is the homestead exemption, which is a total of $556.80. My recommendation would be to approve this.
I make a motion that we accept Keith's recommendation.
There a second
Second.
Keith,
by Doug. Any other discussion?
we just need to be mindful that we don't, this is a one-time thing for this year, for this past year, and it's not reflected on the tax card moving forward, correct? Because they will have their exemption next year, correct?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. I'm sorry, Gary. Yes, that's true. It has since been placed back on and will remain on moving forward. Yep.
Good point.
Okay. All in favor, signify aye.
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 Okay, carried. Article 11, updates to the Board of Selectmen on the town/St. John Valley Chamber Boost Program and the COVID-19 microloan program. Who's going to walk us through this?
Keith,
Okay, go ahead, Keith.
Sure. Which one you guys want to start with, microloan or boost?
Yeah, let's start with the top of the page, microloan program.
Microloan. Okay. I did send some correspondence to you folks, I believe. Since then, we have added another recipient. So right now we're at a total, as of this morning, of 8 businesses that have signed up for the microloan. So that's $8,000 that we've expensed, and all the funds have been dispersed.
Okay,
Beautiful.
Again, it's still open until the end of June. Since I'm sure there's a ton of people watching this online, if you're a small business owner in Madawaska and been affected by COVID-19, you're more than welcome to give me a call, 728-3612. And it's a very simple application and it's a very simple process.
thank you, Keith. Great thing.
Do you guys
How
have any
about
questions
the
on?
small
Do you guys
business?
have any questions on that program?
No,
I don't.
I don't
Perfect.
either.
next.
I was hoping more people would, by this time, would have taken advantage, but there's still time.
Right. Yep.
Next one, Keith.
Yep.
Small business boost program.
Yep. So I'm going to speak on behalf of Sharon as well at the chamber, who Sharon and a lot of her board members and volunteers have been in and out of the building helping her out. She's been working very diligently on getting these all done. So we had a total of 1,242 gift certificates total, which would have been the appropriation we gave plus the donations that were given. Those were for sale, 1,242. Due to a couple glitches in the system, we actually sold 1,244 certificates. So we sold 2 over, which we can make work. But as of I believe Friday or Thursday, we are officially sold out and have dispersed all of the funds. So a little over $60,000 has been is in the process of being distributed out to our small businesses that took part in the program. The first batch of checks to the business owners went out about a week and a half ago, as well as the first batch of certificates. The last batch of both checks and certificates should be going out. If they haven't gone out already, they will be going out in the next couple days, depending on when Sharon can get them all out. We had set a limit of 60 certificates max per business. We had 7 local businesses that maxed out at that number. We had a total of 33 businesses total that did receive some sort of funding through this program. I mean, just I really it was insanely successful in my eyes, and I've heard a lot of positive feedback from some of the local business owners that reached out to me personally and to Sharon as well. This was a program that has been replicated throughout the state. Numerous communities have tried to put something together like this. So I feel really happy about it, the way everything went, and that we were able to really help a lot of small businesses here in town.
I want to take the time to thank you, Keith. Thank the chamber. Lori, you had something to do with the idea.
Yes, you did.
And Gary and was involved in this, but I know you guys worked hard in the chamber, and it's really nice to see that we were able to do something for businesses in our community. And I do want to read a thank you note received from one of these businesses. It's addressed to Gary, staff, and the committee. They just wanted to say thank you for helping the small businesses with the Boost program. It really made a difference. And this particular one, I'll name it, and because they took the time to put it together, Cheyenne, a nice thank you card from them. And it's really nice to see that. And again, I want to thank all of those involved in making this happen. It's easy for us to make decisions that we're going to do this and stuff, but there's a lot of hard work that went into it to make it short work. So again, thank you to all involved.
I just want to say again, Sharon, the director of the chamber, she was phenomenal through this. Huge thanks goes out to her for all the work that the tireless hours she's put in. Also, I had read that note from Helen, and I appreciate the thank you note. She also dropped off some whoopie pies to the town office, so I want to thank her for that and tell her how delicious they were.
Are they good?
They were really good. I would have saved you one, but they were going to go bad, so I just ate 2 instead.
Yeah, you did well. Okay, anything else on that, Keith? Another very good, successful, the town of Madawaska, over time has taken some big hits and stuff, but you know what? When tough times arise, I believe this town can stand on its 2 feet and do well for its members, our community businesses, and our people are going to support them, which shows that they have, and they're still, supporting these businesses. So again, thank you to everyone involved, out in Zoom land too. If you were one that bought a certificate and stuff, we thank you on behalf of the selectmen and the chamber and everyone involved in this. So very successful, and I wish we had $100,000 to do other things with, but we are limited. But again, a great program that, and you said it a while ago, that is trying to be duplicated by other communities now. They're trying to do the same. All right. Are we all set on Article 11?
I have a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
One I shared with Keith already, just for documentation purposes, because it was UDAG money in the town. I'm assuming like at some point we'll get a report of like where the money got distributed to. Or you'll at least have that available for, public record at the town.
Yeah, we can certainly have that made available. Yep.
And then there was mention that the businesses, I think you had 3, one in particular doesn't really want to be mentioned, but you had some other ones, and it was mentioned that they would be mentioned in the advertising for this. And I don't know if I missed it, but if that wasn't done, are we putting out at least like a thank you ad with their logo to say, thank you for donating? Part of, I think it came from Sharon's post maybe on Facebook that said to the businesses who also donated to this, they were going to have an opportunity to have their name mentioned somewhere. And
I mean, and that will happen. We are, okay. Gary and I and Sharon have already discussed taking out an ad in the paper and putting something out. It's hot off the press. It's just finished on Friday. So give us a little bit of time. We'll certainly say thank you.
I'm not in a hurry for it. I just, wanted to make sure it hadn't fallen by the wayside because you guys were really busy and
Yeah, and it's a no, and I mean it's certainly, like I said, going to happen. And since we're talking about it right now, I mean, I'll personally say thank you to all the businesses and individuals who donated to it. Um, Again, enormously successful. We put a lot of money into small businesses that really needed it, and a big shout out to just all the people in the community that purchased them, because to have 30 plus businesses get touched like that, it would have been, there are certain sectors of business that are easier to buy a certificate for that you would thought would have filled up right away. But the people of this community, everyone sort of rallied together and they supported a lot of different businesses, and a lot of people got touched by it. So I think it was, again, just a great program, and thank you to everybody that had anything to do with it.
Well said, Keith. Okay, let's move on.
Thanks to Sharon again
Article
too with the
12.
chamber.
Was that Doug? I missed it.
I was just saying thank you again to Sharon at the chamber, because she, this was a massive amount of work to do.
Ditto.
Bon
Okay,
job,
good.
Sharon, bon job.
Just so you know, Sharon enjoys wine, so if anybody wants to buy her a gift, you can drop off a bottle of wine.
Good. Article 12, Town Department Operational Updates by the Town Manager. How's that going, Gary?
So it was my goal to provide you with some operational updates of our different departments as we move through less restrictions by the state of Maine. Found out on Thursday that the governor's office was planning to put out some updates or some other executive orders on May 20. And so I didn't feel that I was ready to propose any changes right now, not absent of having more guidance from the state of Maine. I think we're lacking on that right now. I will talk, I know that I've sent you as board members emails and news clippings, if you will, or links to news articles to try to help you out in whatever information that I find to help you in your decision-making process as to how things are going to reopen. One of the big things right now is, I talked to Sam at the rec department just to give you an update on that. Sam is sort of taking a wait and see right now as to what kind of programming we could possibly do. That's not what we normally do. But I know that he, like many other rec departments, are taking a wait and see approach as to what other municipalities are doing, and also what the May 20 executive order is going to say. And so I don't have anything to update on the rec department for programs as far as I think there's maybe a possibility for some programming, but it's going to be outside. And I'm going to wait to hear from Sam as to what those are. And I know that you guys as a board had asked for that. And Sam and Diane have been talking, been keeping me apprised. They've been Zooming with all their counterparts to try to brainstorm ideas that would be compliant of the social distancing and crowd size limitations. So more to come on that, more updates. I'll keep you apprised as I learn them. The fitness center has been an interesting one. We've been working on that. There was some confusion as far as opening for fitness centers, and there was a May 11 opening date, I think, for fitness centers, but some of it had to be done outside, or it could be a one-on-one with a physical trainer, if you will. I went in with Sam at the rec department and the staff that were there doing some more maintenance, getting ready for reopening. They've taken the opportunity to do a lot of cleaning and a lot of maintenance work on the equipment, touching up paint and stuff like that. And especially on the weight side of the building, the weight rooms, if you will, the equipment is very close together over there. We use every square inch of space that we can with the equipment that we have in the footprint that's available to us. And so you sit there and you think about the guidelines for social distancing and crowd size, and you think about a fitness center and the running and the weights and all that stuff. And it's not reasonable to, for wearing a mask when you're exerting yourself. And then exerting yourself, it was a situation where, there could be more droplets broadcast out. And so we put a lot of thought into how we would reopen. We would take pieces of equipment out. We started just looking around at all the contact areas, dumbbells, there's a lot of stuff that we have to consider. Now, Lori had a great idea about having people sanitize their own equipment before using it. And I think that's the way we would go for sure. I did get legal guidance, and I think I provided that to you in respect to, one of my biggest concerns was liability to the town for somebody contracting COVID in an environment that maybe perhaps we failed to keep sanitary or germ-free. I had a lot of concern about that. Typically, that those kinds of tort laws, if you will, prevent municipalities from being, our businesses or homeowners being liable for somebody catching a communicable disease. It sounds like we're okay on that in that respect. But legal did come in as to say that it doesn't bar anybody from filing frivolous lawsuits that we would then in turn have to defend ourselves against. And so I think the recommendation that I would make based on the recommendation that legal is making is that any sort of reopening of the fitness center when it happens should include a use agreement, if you will, when people sign up to start coming back into the gym, that they sign a use agreement that basically explains what the protocols are and what the expectations are of the users, meaning, we expect that the users are going to clean their own equipment before they use it. If they are that concerned, that they clean it before and after. What we will provide as a service is provide you an area that we plan to sanitize every night. We found out that there is fogging equipment that we can use. We've ordered one for the ambulance department, and we've ordered one for the fitness center as well, that I think we can get reimbursed through the FEMA grant, which is basically, it fogs a room very easily, and it sanitizes the equipment at all contacts, all surfaces. And so part of our plan could involve us bombing the building or fogging the building every night to try to keep the germs from accumulating, if there are some. And then also a use agreement that people would have to agree to. And part of that use agreement, either incorporated into the use agreement or a separate form, would be a waiver of liability. And the legal was very clear that we strongly recommended a waiver of liability right now because of the gray areas associated with COVID-19 and all the legalities. So that as well, I was hoping to have some framework in place for you to consider here tonight. But based on what I learned, I'm thinking that the governor's office is going to have some guidance on fitness centers on the 20th. So I kind of pulled back on that and I said, let's wait and see what's there before we come up with something that doesn't work, right? So we still have time, but know that the fitness center is definitely one of those areas that once you go in there and you look around, it's like you have lockers, you have bathrooms, you have showers, and how much of that are we going to continue to provide, and who's responsible for cleaning all those things and how often? So some people are more concerned about COVID than others. We see that right now. But I think that, as a fitness center, the spirit of the fitness center was that it operated off memberships and not property taxes. And memberships is what drives the operating expense, what funds the operating expenses. And excess revenues over expenses go into a reserve account to replace equipment or make repairs to the building. And so now we're faced with a situation where we're likely going to see a decline in enrollment in users, because people might just some of those people that are a little more concerned about COVID might kind of hang back for a while and let things play out. Others not so much. But I think at the end, we have to provide a place that's as clean as we can possibly make it. My opinion, it'll be for you guys to decide when we put forth a facilities use agreement for you to consider. And I think I would consider the fact that if we don't provide a clean place, and we provide some assurance that we're taking measures to knock the germs down on a daily basis. It would make our clients a little more inclined to maybe continue their membership with us. After all, if we lose a lot of memberships, we're going to lose a lot of revenue, and sustainability of the fitness center becomes a question at that point. You know, are we generating enough money to keep it going? And so I think providing a clean area as much as we can, and providing some responsibility by the users to take their own precautions, and that they know that these are the expectations of them, then I think it can work. Because there are a lot of people that use a fitness center, and it is a good thing for the community.
I think, Gary, I think you should move ahead with some of that legalese paperwork and get some people to advertise it, that you're doing that, and that maybe after the governor has said her say in a couple, 2-3 days from now, is it?
That's
Couple,
what
2-3 days?
That's what we're anticipating. Yes.
And then you could proceed right after that, because again, time is of the essence. People want to go in, people want to exercise, and I would say move as quickly as you can.
I agree.
Gary, another point I would make also, you're talking about an agreement that we do share an agreement with the school department. I don't know if they have to be at least briefed on what's going on, the measures you're taking. I think it would be a good thing to do that.
Yep, for sure.
Since
I do want to
building-
mention one thing before I almost forgot. When we pulled the handbrake on everything in the fitness center, of course there were active memberships that were paid for, and what we agreed upon at that time is that we would honor everybody's membership. Okay, and that's what we fully expect to do. Now, thinking things through as we reopen, there are some people that are not going to want to go there right now until they feel safer. Okay, and there are some that are going to want to go right now. And so I would suggest to you, and I think I would need this board to act on it. We could do it tonight, I guess, or at another time, that we don't basically blanket extend memberships from the day that we open, whatever that day is, because there's some people that are going to lose their memberships. Okay, they're going to lose what they paid in. I would suggest that we everybody whose membership is paused will start back on the day that they decide to go back, the day that they sign that use agreement and they start to use the gym again, the fitness center again. That would be my recommendation, so everybody's made whole by this, that they're not losing money. And you know, I think it's just a reasonable thing to do.
I agree with that, Gary. That's good.
You want a motion to that effect?
I could use that motion, and then after you're done with that, I want to go back to the fitness center use agreement to just expand on that a little more.
Okay, Dave, did you make that in form of a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that the membership be made whole, and that when they resume their activity, that it would start at that particular time, as stated by Gary.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
And by Doug. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, go ahead, Gary.
In
Go ahead,
respect,
Gary.
in regards to the reopening of the fitness center, I want to hear from you, your thoughts as to reopening. You know, we're probably going to meet here, and our next meeting will be live, will be in person, I'm hoping, next month. I would hate to have to push off a decision to open earlier because of a board meeting. I know that we're still waiting on the fogging equipment, and as you can imagine, like all the other pieces of equipment they use to sanitize and supplies, everything's back ordered and stuff. So I'm not sure when we're going to get the fogging equipment. It is ordered. Is that a concern of yours? It would be kind of a concern of mine that we not have that in place for the reopening. And then as far as the guidelines Do you want to bring that back to this board for full ratification? Or are you okay with some guidelines based on what we just discussed? That if we do get some good guidance from the governor's office that matches up well, or there's no curveballs thrown at us, that we can move forward with reopening without the board having to weigh in on it.
Yeah, I think that's operational. What you're talking about is all operational stuff that should be, dealt with the rec department, with your office. If there's something in particular that you need more guidance on, that's one thing. But when it comes to operations and stuff, I think you have the common sense, and you've done well so far on that with the measures of the COVID-19 measures are being taken by the governor, the task force. You're following basically the rules. So I would just suggest that when you feel it's safe and it's time to reopen and you follow the guidelines, go do what you have to do.
Okay.
Am I wrong, guys?
Can I say just that because you don't know when the fogging equipment is going to come in, a lot of people, I think, are still comfortable if you have the disinfectant available and the rags or whatever needs to be used, that they would still, a good part of them would still go in, clean their own equipment, do their exercise, and then move on. And then when the fog equipment comes in, then you will start using that as a practice. I don't see any problems with that.
I will say that you have to know that we sat down with the rec department and we just figured out, traditionally what we've had there for cleaning equipment is people clean up after themselves with a spray bottle and a rag, and the rags kind of lie around and stuff. And then you sit there and you think about, okay, is that probably not the best thing here? The rag should be one-time use only. And so I think, I've directed Sam to come up with a protocol for, we should probably have maybe 25 spray bottles with the materials. And he's told me that we have the good sanitizer to put in those. It works really well. And basically that when person coming in, for instance, when member would come in and they would grab one bottle and one rag, and that would follow them around. And at the end of their experience, or when they're done, there's a place where they can drop those things off and leave them there. So we can sanitize the bottles and then throw the rags into a laundry to be washed.
Yeah.
So those are the protocols that we want to basically have. And I think we really want to come up with some reasonable protocols that are simple to follow, so everybody knows what the expectations are, so that there's no confusion and trying to explain things that we didn't foresee. They're working hard. We're putting our heads together here to figure this out, and I think we'll have something soon. I hope we get the fogging equipment sooner than later, but we'll have to wait and see.
Anything else, Gary?
Elections, we are moving forward to have the elections on July 14, in tandem with or concurrent with the state primaries, or the federal primaries, if you will, state elections. So that's when our annual election will be of our local officers, the Board of Selectmen. Still waiting on some guidance for town meeting, and I'm hoping that we get something on the 20th, fingers crossed, that's going to help us or guide us how we can hold our town meetings sooner than later.
So
As
Gary,
soon as I hear things, I will keep you guys apprised.
so what, can you tell the people out there when you're expecting to open the town office?
We are opening on the 26th. I'm glad you brought it up, which is next Tuesday. Monday's a holiday.
Okay.
So we still have a few signs that are left to be made for traffic flow up here. We've been working with the staff on our protocols to try to mitigate the, moving around of germs, if you will. But we do have a plan in place. We know we've talked about it, and we're going to be ready on Tuesday, the 26th.
Another question I have is we've not talked about road maintenance. Last meeting we talked about putting a hold on the on the $3 million loan to repave a lot of our roads. But needless to say, there is money in the account, probably somewhere around $400,000 of road repair that we can do this year that maybe the public's not aware of, because we have our regular account, hot top account. Some of it wasn't spent this past year, and we're going to be raising another 325 for next year. And we haven't been given any direction on which roads will be attacked first and in what order that this will be done and what can be done with the smaller amount of money. I think traditionally the board has always been approached by Public Works and you, the town manager, and you make your recommendations, which roads will be fixed, what will be done, this and that, which ones will be hot top, and so on and so forth. We've not had that discussion yet.
I think usually that's part of a budget discussion, Dave, and we worked, we got our budget discussion stopped in March. I think it was March 17. The Finance Committee was our last discussion on budget. We're still awaiting figures from the state of Maine in respect to revenue sharing. We know that our local road assistance program is monies that we get about $90,000 roughly from the state of Maine for the efforts that we do to plow their roads in the winter months, which is like Beaulieu Road and Main Street with our winter compact. We know we've already received correspondence that funding is going to get cut. We don't know how the amount. Okay, I know that the last thing that I'm proposing is that we take our eye off the ball in respect to roads and road maintenance. But I know that my eye is also another ball that my eye is on right now is revenue. And we talk about revenue sharing and we talk about local road assistance, and those are programs that are traditionally funded. And as we work through the budget process, the state starts to give us an indication as to how much those funding levels will be. And usually in July, they've got that number narrowed down. And it's never been very far off when they started shooting us projections in February. So I don't know what those numbers are going to be. I also know that we have other programs that are funded by the state, okay, such as the homestead exemption, which is reimbursed, what we just discussed. We have basically $27 million of homestead value with the roughly 1,150 properties that have a homestead exemption that we hope to get a 70% reimbursement on. If the state doesn't receive any federal stimulus funding, I worry that the state is going to not have the funds, okay, to fund the programs that they do fund. And so the programs that they do fund are the homestead exemption, and the programs that they do fund are education, revenue sharing, local road assistance.
Oh, what are you saying, Gary? Are you saying that one of the first place we're going to cut is the hot top account if we don't have enough money coming from the state?
That's not what I'm saying, Dave. What I'm telling you is my job to keep you as informed as I can.
Yeah.
Okay. Of where things look like right now, the uncertainty. And so, and the other big thing is the Betty reimbursement. Okay. And I hope that, the legislature funds the Betty program. We have an enormous amount of money with equipment value in Betty. And I think our reimbursement from the state is about $900,000 in the vicinity of that. And so I hope that, the state makes revenue projections or they get enough stimulus to be able to continue to fund those mandates, those programs that they've created. And so I expect that they will, but I also, I'm reminded by some of our veteran managers back in '91 in the recession over there when the schools didn't receive their 12th distribution for education. And that was like $250,000 that they didn't get in their fiscal year. And so I just say that, you know, I say this not to sound the alarm, more for us to be mindful that we need to be mindful to the revenue side of things and hope that things work out. And I think we're going to get some information, and it looks like there was some movement today by the Senate for funding for stabilization for states and municipalities. I know that Congress has a bill in as well, and the Senate has their own bill, and they're going to reconcile those in some shape or form, I'm sure. And I hope that we can get some sort of indication.
I'm sure that the road ahead is going to be a little bumpy and yeah, and unpredictable and all this, but at the same time, I'm just assuming that the hot top account has always been funded the same year after year after year, and that I'm just assuming we're going to do it again this year. So if there is on the other side of it, if we're not going to spend any money on our roads this year, what will the public works employees do this summer if there's no money to work on the roads?
There's always work to do, Dave. There's plenty of work besides paving. The paving is the lion's share of those expenses was to pay for paving.
I'm not saying just paving, but paving and working on the road bases, let's say culverts, road bases, that kind of thing.
I think, Dave, if it's, you know, I always question having these kind of hard conversations with you as a board, to not paint a picture that is so bad that would cause some severe concern felt by the community, by you or the people in the community. But I would hope that people in the community hear what we're saying and what our concerns are in respect to revenue funds from the state and the federal government. And that if they do have concerns, that they could certainly send those my way, and I will pass those concerns on to our delegation, so those can be, that they can have those with them when they're taking up these bills. It's that important. And I think I would encourage people to reach out to their state and federal elected officials to nudge them in that direction, to make sure that municipalities and states aren't forgotten. Because if they don't step in with some sort of revenue stimulus, I don't know what it's going to look like.
Before we go further, I don't know how much longer we have for the meeting, but we have gone beyond the 2-hour limit. Just to cover ourselves, is there a motion to continue our meeting?
Make a motion that we extend it by 15 minutes.
I don't know that we need that much longer, Dave.
Business we need to
But
get
no
done.
more than 15.
I don't think we need 15. I think we're almost
Well,
done.
Well, we need a schedule. We need to put our schedule together, right?
Yes.
Okay, there's a motion, there's a second, all in favor? Okay.
Aye.
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 Gary, go ahead, Lori.
Can we, I was gonna jump in there and can Dave kind of switch the way we were going. I just have one thing to say, you know, about the fitness center and the opening of it. This is coming from someone who really has not been there, so I'm sure, you know, people that use it all the time may think this is the craziest thing ever. But when it comes down to like when we're opening things and what we're doing, perhaps reaching out to some of them sometimes would be helpful. And I just want us to be mindful that if the governor comes in on the 20th and, you know, starts making other demands, that we don't just come out and say no. And I know, Gary, you're not normally like that, but I go back to, again, you know, the multi-purpose is huge. And if it's not going to be used for the kids this summer, you know, if nothing else, is there any equipment that we could move there and section off with maybe the trade show curtains and at least make a concession to give them something? And I don't need an answer to that, but I just think that, you know, maybe we could think that way if we can't open that particular spot. You know, we have a huge empty building that maybe we could help them out and do something with a few pieces of machinery anyway. That's all. I wanted to throw that out there.
That's a good
Food for
idea.
thought. Food for thought.
Listen,
Okay, do you have anything else, Gary, on the update on that?
So I was just gonna say, Lori, I want to reopen sooner than later, and I don't expect that there's going to be anything complicated on anything that comes out of the governor's office on the 20th. My goal is to reopen sooner than later. I just want to have those protocols, use agreement, the liability, the waiver agreement in place, and get the fogger, if I can, ideally sooner the better. Just barring any sort of ridiculous thing that we might see, then that's my goal. To get it
Well,
open.
she's gonna come out on the 20th and roll a whole bunch of stuff back. We have no idea what she's gonna do.
We have no idea. Yeah. Okay. Let's take a look at a potential meeting date in June.
So I think that either the 8th or the 15th would be okay with me. We've taken care of some of the backlog, which were the abatements mostly. I don't have anything pressing right now, other than to say that we are at some point in time going to have to resume our budget discussions. I will feel much better if I can see some Congress move and the Senate move into some sort of funding, and I think they will. It's looking like things are moving right now. That gives me a lot of hope that we can start a budget process, resume our budget process without making the worst case assumptions that we would have to, without any comfort that there's something coming. So I feel a heck of a lot better right now than I did. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that they're going to come through for us. So for me, as far as regular board meetings go, take care of the town's business outside of any budget discussions. I'm okay with Monday the 8th or Monday the 15th.
I cannot do the 15th.
Okay, or it could be a Tuesday. Basically for me, first or second or third week of June. Fine.
The 8th
I
works
think-
fine.
Was that, Lori?
The 8th works for me. I like sticking to the same day. This seems to be easier to.
But Don, you can't do the 8th? Is that what you said?
No, I can do the 8th. I cannot do the 15th.
Okay.
I'm good with the 8th.
I think we should do the 8th,
Okay. And what time, guys?
5:30.
So the next meeting now is an open meeting, right? We're going to be doing this at the library?
So I think what we've discussed in the past is that we would use the library for our next meetings for a while. So that way, we have enough space for people who want to come in and take part. The school has said yes, absolutely. Just give us a heads up, enough heads up so we can have the custodians kind of take care of things. So that would be the location would be the Madawaska Library for our next board meeting in person.
5:30.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order? For our community, anything else that we need to? That particular meeting, Gary, based on what Selectman Moore asked, if we could have budget updates as to what we have in reserve or money to work with for the Public Works hot top and repair, what they have in there for dollars, and maybe get Kevin to attend that meeting so that we can have that type of discussion would be great. Okay, I guess we're there. I guess we're good.
We're all good.
I think
Okay.
by June, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I think by June we're gonna know a lot more as far as revenue is concerned and what is going to be coming. We might not have the finer details or exact dollar figures, but I think it's going to be very helpful for us. And then from there on, we can decide to resume our budget discussions moving forward.
Lori, you were going to say something, Lori?
Need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, you did. You beat Dave to it. You beat Dave to it. Good for you. Motion
I'll
by
second
Lori
it.
to adjourn. Dave seconded. Okay, thank you, folks. Meeting is adjourned. you.
Thank you.